All right, so this is, I think, the third or the fourth time we've done this video. And because I keep on changing my mind about what I want to say, because I keep on learning more about quirky big lenses. So, okay, I'm going to say 20 years ago, I was at a camera swap meet, and I was going back and forth, down the aisles, through the tables, looking at all kinds of junk. And this caught my eye. This is, and I remember, it was just in a box, and I remember looking at it going, God, that's so cool. Look at the size of that lens. And it must be really good. And it was like 10 bucks, I think, or maybe $20, but certainly no more than that. And it is it's a large format lens. And I'm like, large format lens for 20 bucks? Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Well, it's a 10-inch lens, it's f4.5, and I thought, man, this is great, big lump of brass and glass, and I think it weighs 1.84 pounds. And it is, if nothing else, it's a great paperweight. And there were two problems with this lens. One was that it didn't come with a lens board. So it was just the bare lens, and I have a lens board on it now, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this is your Technica lens board from Linhof, and I have a bunch of these, most of which have lenses mounted on them. Now the problem is that this lens is too big for that hole, and I really did not want these things are $300 to buy for the Technica ones. You can get off-brand ones on eBay and from Asia, which are exactly the same, except a whole lot less expensive, but they take a long time to get there. And I don't have a drill press for cutting a hole exactly the right size. And this lens, the flange on it is not that. There's not really a lot of room. So you need to be right about, or correct, or accurate in terms of cutting a hole. So that wasn't going to work. So I actually found a guy on Etsy who could 3D print me a lens board with exactly the right opening. So for $17, he lives nearby, he printed me a lens board. It's not that solid, but it's a $20 lens, and it seems to actually hold up so far. It seems to have held up quite well. I didn't have a retaining ring, so I just packed the back of the lens board with a bit of green tape, which so far, again, seems to be holding. So that was problem one solved, was that the lens did not have a lens board. Problem two was the lens, of course, is a barrel lens, which means that there's no shutter in it. And it is, the reason why it's a barrel lens is because it's not a camera lens. It's a projection lens. So it's a lens that you use on a projector to project images through, onto a screen, onto a wall, something like that. So it's, there's no reason why it doesn't have shutters, because there's no reason why it would need a shutter, because it's not taking photos. There's classic stories about old photographers, who would put their hat in front of their lens and then would take the hat off, and that would be the exposure. So I figured a piece of black card would probably do the same thing. So I decided that as long as I could get the exposure right, we would be able to, just use a piece of black card, and that would be our exposure. So neg film, of course, not transparency film. I mean, it's close, but not that close. I grabbed my Baldix camera. We set it up on a mid-century modern chair, and we shot a few sheets of film with our projector lens, and the results were interesting. First of all, it worked, which was kind of fun. The exposure was not bad. It was pretty overexposed, but what can you do? And but one thing I did notice, and the reason why I'm actually redoing this video is because I had a great comment on one of our other videos about lens design and why lenses are the way they are, and this extremely knowledgeable gentleman writing, actually a really quite an interesting discussion as to why a lens design is what it is. But it occurred to me that one of the things I love about my Xenitar is how the in-focus zone to the out-of-focus zone, how beautiful and soft and progressive it is, and how pleasing it is visually. And going from in-focus to out-of-focus with a projection lens is abrupt, to say the least, and you can see that on the image. The in-focus part is nice and sharp. The out-of-focus part is not, and it goes from sharp to blurry really quickly. And it didn't take long for me to figure out that maybe that was one of the things they were looking for when they designed a projection lens. that maybe you want to be able to focus it and know exactly when it's in focus, and you don't really care what it looks like out of focus because it doesn't matter. Like it's not even part of the equation. So, and I was shooting this lens wide open, and I'm quite confident that if I were to stop it down to f32 or f22, it would be even more abrupt. That I mean, obviously, you're going to have more depth of field, but it's just that, like, so. So where I'm going with this is that it was an interesting exercise, but the limitation of the lens design, and I'm not saying that the lens design was poor. I'm saying that I'm using it for a use that it really was never designed for, and it's pretty obvious that the lens design does not lend itself to what I was looking for anyway. I'm sure that there's all kinds of people out there who love shooting with projection lenses on their cameras, and there's some sort of wild and unique results. But for me, I'm glad I only spent $20 on it. And so this 254 10-inch lens, 254 f4.5 lens, I have a 255 millimeter telezenar f5.5, which does have a shutter, and which has much better transition from in focus to out of focus. So going forward, I think I'll be leaving this on the desk, holding down my notes, and I'll be shooting with the telezenar because not only is it just easier, it just looks a whole lot nicer. So if you're wondering about shooting a projection lens on 4x5 film, totally doable, and but the results might not be quite what you're looking for. So for what that's worth, there you have it.